I had a case at a nuclear facility where a pipe was resonant, and resonant so bad that it was going to destroy itself. And we checked for the forcing function. The forcing function turned out to be at 4 times the frequency of the pump. When we tore the pump down, it was supposed to have a 5-volute or a 5-vein rotor, and it had 4. We called the pump manufacturer, and he said that was a mistake. We put the 5-vein rotor in, the problem disappeared.
Sometimes the best questions can be asked of another machine as a comparison.
If, for example, we had a tool cutter, if we could just hit it 2 or 3 times with a hammer and say, wait a minute, this thing only has 4,000 pounds per inch stiffness. That's a very weak tool cutter. It's going to chatter. It's going to produce a poor product. If the next machine down the line has 4 million pounds per inch stiffness, wow, why doesn't this one have it?
A 50-ton milling machine over 40 feet long was leaving an unacceptable pattern in the finished product. After determining the problem frequency to be 294 hertz, Art relates how he traced the problem to the source.
Now I know the frequency of that pattern. And I'm going to, obviously, I think this is obvious to everyone, I'm going to look for around 294 hertz someplace in this machine. I mount accelerometers vertical on the table, it's there. I mount them axial on the table, it's there. I mount them horizontally this way, it's there. I mount it on the machine right here, I got 294 hertz. I measured here, I got 294 hertz. 294 hertz everywhere. Well, it sure got 294 hertz in. It's got to be in this machine someplace. This runs 1200 RPM and it's directly on a motor. And this is sliding back and forth hydraulically. Must be coming from the plant. So what I'll do is mount a transducer right there. Well, we might check that frequency. It looks very suspicious. I got 288 to 296 hertz, and I have a respectable spike. Please bear in mind, I'm on that solid piece of concrete. That's just inconceivable. What we must have is LeBlanc lathe. The whole plant's going up and down at 294 hertz. We'll move the transducer over here. This is the floor of the plant. I'm only going to move 2 inches. I'll just move over here 2 inches and let's see what it does. Looks like that. Well, you say it's 294 in there. Well, it's down in there someplace. Let's look. Let's use the same scales. Now here's the concrete base, right there. And there's the floor 2 inches away. By golly, somehow I have to find 294 hertz in that machine. There isn't any. Oh, there's lots of it there, but I can't find any forcing function for it. I walked around the back of the machine, and there's one of these hydraulic service units, the big sump, the hydraulic sump, and then all these motors and pumps mounted on it that service this surface grinder. They provide lubrication and coolant and all that kind of stuff. And there's a little tiny 3rd horsepower motor, and I'm probing around there with an accelerometer, sort of trying to find 294 hertz. And there's this little 3rd horsepower motor driving what looked like a little pump, and I put the transducer on there, and I got 294 hertz, about 35 Gs. And I said, what's that? Oh, he said, that's just a little loop pump. He said, it couldn't be that. You know, it could be. It's sure the right frequency. Boy, that sounds just like what I'm looking for. I said, that's got to be it. He said, there is no way in heaven that little pump could shake 50 tons of machinery. And I said, I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely agree that that box doesn't. And I've learned over the years sort of trust the box. This is the first one you saw. This is on the floor beside that. This is with the pump off. This is with the... Now, it took a month. Now, you know what the customer said, and that's what he always says. Wow, that's super. Can't you get rid of that? I'm just real excited that I went from here to there. I just sort of puff up and feel, boy, there's an OSU graduate really came through. And the first thing he says is, can't you get rid of that?
Does the analyzer lie?
The vibration analyzer doesn't make up signals. Time and time again, my customers have said, there's something wrong with your analyzer. And my comment has always been, I'm sort of like the old Scotch lady, that in the long run, I found out God is usually right.
And I've found out usually that analyzer's correct. And if it tells me you have 5 veins, you have 5, you don't have 4.
Another incident indicates the importance of venturing out of the normal boundaries with questions.
What I have is a tank car. Sitting on the railroad rails here. And then there's a platform built above it, and they unload chlorine and pipe it into the plant. And up in this area, I got 90 to 100 mil. I moved the transducer down here on the rail behind this tank car and measured 31 mil. And I'm measuring that at about 9.6 hertz. And I said, wow, that's 9.6 hertz. What's that? He said, that's what I'm asking you. We're sitting out here in the railroad yard. Well, I want to look for a coherent signal. But man, we're a long ways from anything. So what we did is synchronous time averaging. But I have a radio transmitter where I can put a tack pulse in it, and I have a little receiver goes in my shirt pocket that I can receive the tack pulse. So I put my analyzer on this platform with the receiver, and I start walking around with a photocell in this transmitter, about a mile away. Almost a mile away. Ask West Page. Well, we got it. Perfect. Synchronous time averaging, everything goes away but the 9.6 hertz. And I said, it's got to be that. You telling me that machine is shaking that tower? Well, that's what it looks like. Synchronous time averaging is a pretty powerful technique.
When Albert Einstein was asked how he made so many discoveries during his life, he replied, I simply keep asking the questions that children eventually learn to quit asking. These seemingly dumb questions can be the key that leads to the solution.
For example, I won't mention the company name, but one large air handler manufacturer sold a group of fans, air handlers, to a large company. And the purchase order said that no vibration should exist in the system that exceeded 1/10 of an inch per second. And the customer wouldn't pay because the vibration was 0.12. And their field service manager was unable to get the vibration below 0.12 inches a second. He did everything he knew how to do. They finally called me and asked me to look at these air handlers. And I said, how much do they vibrate when they're shut off? And the field service manager said, I don't know. They don't vibrate at all when they're shut off. And I said, wait a minute. They'd only have to vibrate 0.02 because it's 0.12. Maybe if we subtracted 0.02 from 0.12, we'd have 0.1. Oh, he said, that's a good point. We shut them off and they shook 0.11. And the customer looked at me and said, we better pay for these, hadn't we? And I said, absolutely.
To eliminate repeat problems and get to the source, the big question must be,
wouldn't you want to know why?